I guess you kind of want to shift gears into talking about design system changes. So I guess we
Mhm.
can go into that. Um, I don't know where you want to go with this, so lead the way, I guess.
I can explain. So, I've actually been doing this for about 2 years now. And as a designer, so I don't know if you know about all the sleuth of new applications that deal with design system organization graphically.
Mhm.
So the most notable applications in this space are Figma,
Right, right.
but there's also, previously there was a Mac application called Sketch, and there was Adobe XD, um, the earlier players, and what they aimed at doing was to bring the same level of organization that you have in a development space with frameworks, with code, but in a graphical idea meant for designers, for
Mm,
graphical designers, so that you can actually do all the design work to the level that a developer would expect, but for all you know, you're just working with graphics.
mhm,
uh, but at the moment that you hand off that design to a developer, they can read the code for that design, and they know that it has the appropriate variables, the appropriate color names that you can just apply in your system.
mhm,
Um, and so, and previously, when we were working with Breeze, we this was at a time when we didn't have applications like these. They work with vector graphics, so SVG, and our best solution at the time was to work with Inkscape.
mhm,
Um, Now, however, over time, Inkscape has remained more of a illustration type of application with SVG at the core.
mhm,
And but this whole side of UI development with graphic design exploded, and we now have applications like Figma. It probably is the dominant player out there.
mhm,
um, and along came other derivative applications that try to do what they do, and a few others like Webflow, like Framer, like try to fill in the gap for animation and other stuff.
mhm, mhm,
But there was nothing truly open source until there were a few other open places, like uh, now PenPod is a serious contender for the open space.
mhm,
And we have basically, with that in mind, I took this idea, and a couple of years ago, we were talking about how we use 22 pixel icons in our desktop as the base icon size.
mm,
And 22 pixel is not a sin, but it actually is very different than most other systems that use multiples of 8
mm,
to size and resize items on the desktop, because multiples of 8 generally do better when you do division.
mhm,
Um, and so not only that, 22 is rather small. For example, in our system, we have icons that are, and I'm just picking icons for now,
mhm,
but we have 16, we have uh, 22, and then we have 32, and then we have 48,
mm,
56, and so on. And so our 22 was sort of the odd man out. And we made them that way in the beginning because our screens were smaller, less resolution, and we needed to make our stuff smaller.
mhm,
Um, so we started a discussion about how can we make these icons be more standard size. And I said, okay, I'll just jump in. I'll see if I try my luck, and I'll try to edit some of the Breeze icons. And soon I realized that the icons, we truly don't have sources for the icons. And
uh-huh,
what I mean by that is something different than having like a Git repo. Uh, Sources exist. People can go to our Git repo and download Breeze icons, for example.
mhm,
Not a problem. But the moment a designer downloads a Breeze icon and you open it in an editor, you realize that there are no layers. It's just a flat image.
right.
And there's a problem with that, in that you have a real hard time editing any of the shapes. So your solution as a designer is to recreate the icon. And so
Mhm.
I mean, imagine, right? Like you go to a painter, purchase their paint, their picture, and but you're not interested in the picture so much as you're interested in the brushes, in
Mhm.
the paints that they use in the bag. Like that's what I'm interested in. And so we didn't have any of that. And not only that, I think kudos to the previous designer that worked on these icons because they had to do all of this on Inkscape, and Inkscape is a single instance type of window, and he made thousands of icons just one window at a time. So
Mm.
that's a lot of work, humongous work. But I had a realization at that point, and I thought, what is my end goal? Do I want to recreate icons, or do I want to provide sources, create the new size, and also replicate good design in our icons?
Mhm.
And so, with that in mind, I thought it might just as well be easier to create a whole new system
Mhm.
of icons. And with that in mind, we picked up an earlier idea that we had. We wanted to evolve Breeze into a theme called Ocean or Ocean Breeze. It's received a few names, but nothing really came out of that effort. Eventually, it was we had some mock-ups and some ideas here and there, but nothing really truly made it into code
Mhm.
as such as Ocean, as an evolution of that system. So, with that in mind, I started creating a bunch of icons. I formed a team around that, and we started a matrix channel called Ocean
Mhm.
or Plasma Next, dedicated to the Ocean style. And additional to that, we started a design system where we took templates that are freely available online and we
Mhm.
put them in Figma, particularly to see how we could execute uh, a whole design system. What I mean by a system is like the the Figma document contains buttons, sliders, colors, typography, all the elements that put together a UI,
Mhm.
but in a very organized way, in a very thoughtful way. Um, and also explained in variants, so you can actually easily swap between graphics, and it just makes it so much faster. So anyway, we started doing that. We worked on creating buttons, all this stuff, all the sliders, and the idea is that we finally bring a new design into Plasma so that we can deliver things faster and better.
Mhm. Mhm.
In fact, and you spoke of this in your previous post about our discussion, we're also partnering with the team around Union,
Mm.
because Union will, as the name states, will unify the frameworks and provide a common engine for developers to call their components and build their UI. And what we're trying to do is to basically be one to that idea.
Mm.
Graphics will replicate what Union can provide, and we're hoping that all of this machinery that's created in the design system makes it into code so that there is a good one-to-one relationship between people making graphics and then exporting that to build their UI.
Mhm.
Um, right now, that's not possible. It wasn't possible with Breeze. It wasn't possible in previous iterations with Oxygen or anything like that. So, and why are we doing this? Because there's a huge divide between skill level,
Mhm.
time, and then delivery. Our users, for the most part, want big things, big changes. They want us to execute, I don't know, dark mode the easiest way we can. But our system is complex, and we don't have like our developers are not, they don't spend all their time designing things, and I don't spend my time developing. So how do we marry this thing? um, and so what we do is basically to look for ways that we can interpret what code needs to do, but in a graphical way. And that way users export the graphics, they contain all the variables they need to use,
Mhm.
and then they just need to apply the cool feature they want to make. And that is now actually through PenPod,
Mhm.
not through Figma, but we're leaving that system. It's just to get it get us started.
Mhm, mhm.
But through PenPod, we can actually distribute the designs that we make, and anybody can actually take this library with our assets and build their own UI up to the standard of Plasma that we're trying to set. And so hopefully this can actually attract more designers into Plasma, and it actually can attract can drive developers as well, if they feel so inclined, to also design things first and then try to code it up.
Mhm.
That way the cost of development is not so high. I think what happens today, maybe you this has been brought up in your channel before.
Mm.
There are many instances when our Plasma developers, because of our many frameworks, have to design the same thing 4 or
Yeah, I
5
was just
times.
about to ask you
Yeah,
in regards to like what Union is doing there, just to explain that. My understanding
yeah.
is over the years there's been, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 different frameworks for building KDE
Mhm.
applications. I don't know the exact number. The answer is more than one. Um,
Yes.
this leads to redesigning things. This leads to designs changing in one location but not being updated in another location. And when people talk about inconsistency, a big part of that is, yeah, on the back end, the way it's implemented actually is kind of
Yeah.
inconsistent.
And imagine a developer that whose forte is networking, for example,
Mhm.
trying to battle the UI and see how you can actually execute in one, and then it does not work the same way in the other framework, and you have to design it to look similar, but you don't have the same set of tools. The cost of development is huge, and I can see how many people get burned out by this, because when the product comes out and I review it, for example, I can immediately say, oh, that does not look like it should. And that's really difficult to process for a developer, right? Here's a lot of hours of work, you know breaking your head open for stuff that it's hard to achieve, and finally something comes out and you get all this criticism.
Mhm.
So that stuff is really difficult. And same for me. Like, I'm guilty of this all the time. I've made so many mockups with random graphics from all over the place, and when I present that to developers, they're like, where are you getting this from? This is nothing like what we have today, and you cannot expect us to make this line like this, because that doesn't work like that. And so on both sides of the argument, you see people who struggle to make the connection between graphical UI and the code. And so Union will solve that for developers
Mhm.
mostly, right? Union will say, I, as a developer, I'm requesting a drop down component. Okay, here's your drop down. It will look the same in all of our frameworks. You just use this drop down. Go ahead. But then again, all of that kind of work needs to be backed up by a solid design system that is
Right.
telling you these are the appropriate elements to use and these are the appropriate looks that you should use in your system.
Mhm.
Uh, at the end of the day, we want to abstract design work from developers so that they focus more on the execution of their awesome idea, rather than dealing with, oh my goodness, this button is blue and then it used to be red and I can't fix it. That's a tough, that we need to remove that from the equation.
Mhm.